Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
From Nashville, Tennessee, Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, we share insights and inspiration from movers and shakers in the world of business. Our goal is to help you increase your self-discipline, overcome procrastination, and help you to take action on all the things that really matter.
Do you ever get overwhelmed? Do you ever feel completely buried and behind, like you'll never be caught up, like you'll never get things back under control, like you're just always losing with the amount of stuff there is to do? That's what we're talking about today. And my guest, Carrie Wilkerson, is a really interesting lady, and she has a great story, and she's made some really major transformation in her life. And she's got some concepts here that I think you're going to find powerful if you struggle with not only being busy, but the stress and the pressure of feeling behind. Specifically, that is what we're talking about. It's really about the emotional side of time management and productivity, but it's not about getting stuff done. It's about how do you manage the emotions of the worry and the fear and the guilt of never being able to keep up with everything that you're asked to do. So if that is you, this episode is totally for you. And I think you're going to have some big light bulbs. I'm going to distill what Carrie and I talk about down to 5 simple points after, things that you can take immediate action on. So this is a big one for your mental health. We'll get started just after this special message.
This episode is sponsored by Southwestern Coaching. Southwestern Coaching has helped over 11,000 people increase their incomes by over 25% on average. As a successful salesperson, you know the importance of increasing your sales, but sometimes you might just need a little extra push and accountability to meet your goals and grow your business. Southwestern Coaching will help you increase your income through one-on-one sales and leadership coaching tailored specifically to your needs. Together, we will elevate sales. To schedule your free one-on-one business action planning session with a Southwestern coach, go to www.southwesternconsulting.com/action catalyst.
Carrie Wilkerson, my new friend, who I don't know how we haven't met until now, because everybody that I know knows her, and everybody's like, have you met Carrie? She's amazing. Like, she's awesome. And anyways, I'm meeting her now, and I'm finding out just right before we started the recording that she used to work with Mary Kay, several of the nationals there, and has a real strong connection to all those lovely people over at Mary Kay. And in the last, several years or few years, she has become, just one of the world's, I think, most popular thought leaders. I mean, she's a social media celebrity. She's been on CNN and Fox News, and she's kind of done like marketing things with John Maxwell and the Ziglar family, and just a whole bunch of really awesome stuff. And she's the author of a book that is called The Barefoot Executive. And I think she's really cool, and I wanted to have a chat. So, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So can you tell me your story a little bit? Because I kind of go, wow, you know Dave Ramsey and Zig Ziglar and John Maxwell and Michael Hyatt and all these just wonderful people. Can you just give us a little bit of background on how you got started and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, it's a long story, but it takes time. It's a marination. It's a crockpot story. But the fact is, when I was in 7th grade, I had a teacher who was in Zig Ziglar's Sunday school class, believe it or not. And so she studied with him every week. He created a junior high curriculum because that's when self-esteem can be changed in kids, but is typically solidified in kids. And he created a self-esteem curriculum for junior highs. It was not widely adopted, so he was beta testing it with a few people in his Sunday school class. And I was blessed enough to be introduced to Zig Ziglar, the concept of stinking thinking and goal setting and creating your own life by what you think and changing your results by changing your mind. And that was 7th grade. So I remember that very distinctly. And then, of course, I went through high school. I always was a little more positive than the average bear, I'd say. But then went to college. After college, started in my typical track, right? Did some government work, did some corporate work, taught in the education system, and then adopted 2 kids that changed my life literally overnight. And I said, I'm a smart girl. I have a lot of qualifications. I have these 2 kids that I've chosen to parent and I've chosen to bring into my house. They've had a rough start. I need to be here with them. However, there has got to be a way to make some money at home. And I started studying sales, and guess whose name pops up again? Zig Ziglar.
Right.
Zig Ziglar, started studying leadership with John Maxwell. I started a Mary Kay career, which I was in Mary Kay sales for 3 years. And then I created a publishing company which served Mary Kay people on the leadership level, owned that for 10 years before I sold it so that I could pursue the Barefoot Executive. And I would say the way I know people and the way I get connected is very intentionally. I have a list of things to accomplish in a certain amount of time. I have a list of people I choose to intentionally have in my circle. And then because we know how the brain works, that the brain seeks to solve problems that you give it. When we think negatively or think, oh, that'll never happen or I'll never meet them, then your brain doesn't look for reasons to make it happen. And so it believes you. But when you say, I'm going to at some point work with Zig Ziglar, speak on stage with Zig Ziglar, be endorsed by Dave Ramsey, be noticed by John Maxwell, your brain goes to work to solve those things. And then when you physically and emotionally invest in opportunities to do so, that's when you become lucky. And I use lucky sarcastically because I don't think anything I ever have done is lucky, but I've been very intentional. So that's how I got in those circles. I was published by Thomas Nelson, who publishes those guys. So they became aware of my work. And now I was on Dave Ramsey's EntreLeadership show recently. I'll be a recurring guest on there. He's endorsed my book, and we have a lot of the same mutual friends, which leads to other mutual friends. But that's how that happens. So I have intentional goals about places to speak and companies to speak for and companies to work with sales forces. And then your mind goes to work, in effective ways to make that happen.
Yeah, I've heard before that the human mind doesn't delineate at all between positive and negative. It just does whatever you tell it to do. And so when you set it in a direction, much like a computer, it works to it's going to continue stewing on whatever that thing is until it finds a resolution.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about productivity specifically. I mean, a lot of people who tune into this, it's like, we're so freaking busy. We never have enough time. It doesn't seem like... And I think margin is what people are after, or even just maybe not even margin, but just peace, like feeling like I have a grip on the projects that are in my queue, and I have a relative level of control or awareness of everything. Like I feel like everything that I have a responsibility for is being taken care of. So, like, what do you think are some of the mistakes? Because I know that you're reading about productivity, writing about it, talking about it, and I'm just kind of curious for your take on what do you think is causing this overwhelm, or what do you think are some of the mistakes that people are making when it comes to, making the most out of their time every day?
That's a great question. I think we are too available. Bottom line is we're too available. Our ego insists that we be available at the touch of a text or Facebook or a phone call or email. And we don't guard our time and energy and space as well as we would if we had a physical office with a door on it. We take the office home with us. And for some of us, that's necessary at certain times. For some of us, we've sold ourselves the lie that that makes us more flexible. And that's certainly true. I have 4 kids. And so sometimes at the playground, I'm one of the moms probably that people try to shame on Facebook. Like there was a mom that had her kids at the playground and she was staring at her phone the whole time. Well, that may be because I'm homeschooling my kids 3 days a week. And so we took a break, and they know that because I've been so available to them all morning, that's my 1 hour that I'm going to need to answer emails and let them run off some energy so we can go back and get back to it. So sometimes it does let me be more flexible. But a lot of times we just feel like we have to be responding to the urgent because nobody can handle it like us. But unless you're in an organ business, a transplant business, a blood supply business, most of us are not in a life urgent situation thing where we can't step away from availability for 2 or 3 hours. But what we're seeing in brain research is that availability and electron connection, so internet connectivity, phone connectivity, actually functions with many humans much like a hit of an addictive substance.
Right.
So we literally have addicted ourselves to where we have shakes and tremors or shortness of breath when we are not, if you've lost your phone around your house and then had a panic attack because of that you might have a problem, right? So I think that's part of it. We are not guarding our availability. We are not turning selves off. And I'm not preaching and saying you're not available enough for your kids or you're not available enough. I'm not saying there's any magical balance. I'm saying we have to get over ourselves a little bit and step away and put up a few more boundaries to protect our health, our wellness, our energy, our capacity.
Yeah. I mean, and if you haven't, Boundaries is a good book to read by Dr. Cloud, and then also Essentialism was a big one from Greg McEwen, who we had on the show not too long ago. But so I actually want to go on something you said, because you talked about our ego insists that we're available, and I think you hit that pretty well. And I agree with you. And the part I want to dive in on your story is the part where you said, I'm one of the moms that they shame on the playground, probably because they look at me and I'm checking my phone. And I think it's so ironic because even in your own story that you're telling, there's 2 sides. One is the ego of I need to be available for people. They need me right now. I'm only a good, I'm more important if I'm more available. But the other part that you brought up that I don't think we talk as much about is kind of that guilt of well, you're a workaholic or you're never available. So how do you find peace about that? Being at the playground is such a good example. There's somebody at some point, if you're there every day doing that, you're going to be judged. How do you resolve that?
Well, first of all, you got to not care as much. I mean, as long as my kids and I have the conversation and my kids know I'm available, then that's important. What I do know in my own self and in my own skin is that we just walked away from 5 hours of focused math reading at snack time and breakfast together. We maybe even woke up and snuggled together and watched a cartoon before we started. And so then that's the 1 hour that I've worked that day. So people that are putting that in their own context are projecting their own own thoughts onto that. That can't be my problem. That can't be my business. One thing I love to say about balance and success, just in general, is it's in the eye of the beholder, meaning me. I get to define what balance looks like for me. My balance is going to look different than your balance. I have 4 kids ranging from age 9 to 21, one with special needs. We do a combination of private school, college, homeschool, and public school. We're involved in theater, arts, and tumbling, and very active in our church life and immediate family, et cetera, et cetera. So mine's going to look different than yours, and that's okay. We've got to quit expecting everyone to fit into a formula and judging them if they don't. We've got to worry more about the business in our own life than everybody else's business. And that is to stop worrying about them judging, but then it also means we've got to stop comparing. Comparison will steal your joy. It's suicide on the installment plan. It will defeat you every time. It will either defeat you or give you false pride. Period. So we've got to stop comparing. We got to stop looking at that woman on the playground and going, well, at least I'm not checking my phone or playing Candy Crush while I'm on the playground, and then giving myself false pride because I'm more present and attentive, when the truth is that woman might be working 50 hours a week away from home, and that's the only time she has, and that's great. This other woman might be with her kids 24/7, and this is her only break. So we just have to stop the comparison and the judging, and we have to have the conversation with our kids, the conversation with our spouse, our business partner, our coworkers, and say, what works for us? What looks like peace and balance and joy for us? What helps me bring value into the world with our clients, coworkers, team, employers? What does that look like? And then you have to be okay being judged. If I was worried about being judged, I wouldn't be online. I wouldn't, have pictures or videos or posts online, because I know I get so many private messages and texts and emails that I can only imagine what the people are not saying, because there are enough of them that are bold enough to say it. Right? We've just got to stop, especially women. To be fair, we're judged even more than the men. And that's not a martyr statement. It just is what it is statement. So we have to quit worrying about what the woman at the playground thinks. And if she does make a comment, you can respond with grace and say, this is what works for our family. Thank you for being concerned. I can see them.
Well, I think one of the powerful things that you said there is even just being aware of the fact that when people judge you, it's not even because they're judgmental or they're mean or whatever. It's simply that they're putting you in the context of their own story.
Yes.
They're putting that particular scene, they're relating it to the only thing they can relate it to, which is themselves. And so they're seeing that, they kind of respond as, hey, that is unacceptable. And that's what they're speaking out of, because they've internalized it, and which really speaks to the fact they're not even really talking to you. They're really talking to an imaginary version of themselves almost.
Right. And we have to be okay with that. We have to quit defending. We have to just go, thank you for your feedback. We do what works for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like you quit defending, and you quit being upset by it, and you quit being mad about it, and you quit worrying about it. Meanwhile, it's like you're accepting the feedback as, maybe it's a gift from God to just be always holding yourself in check about, am I accomplishing, am I spending the time that I need with the people that I want? But like you said, I think it comes down to defining your own picture of success, and your kids are the ones that it's their feedback that really matters to you.
Right. And there's one more point that goes with that. A lot of us are not doing something because we're afraid of the invisible audience. So the invisible audience is a concept that starts when we're preteens. So for instance, my 9-year-old could care less what other people think about how she dresses or what she does or what she eats or what she says. She's in this really great state of that. Once you hit like 11, there's this invisible audience of everybody will be laughing at me. Mom, don't kiss me in front of my friends. What will they say? It's the invisible they. It's the everybody. It's the everybody says, when really it was one kid that made some kind of snarky comment that may or may not even have been taken out of context. Well, with social media and with our own, self-imposed narcissism and worry and fear of judgment because of how judgmental we are of everyone else, this is now carrying into adulthood. I think we used to outgrow this, but now we carry around this invisible audience with us everywhere. And I think for a lot of us, it is sabotaging great work we can do, or bold moves we can make, or big asks we can ask, or creativity that we can express, because we are prejudging, right? Those of us that have been in sales or in ministry, we get the like, oh, they're not going to be open to that, or they're not going to whatever. We prejudge. So we're familiar on those terms, but we're like, oh, nobody would like it if I did that, or what would they say if I cut my hair that way? And so we're not doing this big work or playing full out because we're so afraid of them. And so it kind of works both ways. Number one, we have to be okay with the fact that they're judging when we are making some moves, but we also have to not be afraid to take those steps, to speak up at the meeting, at work, to wear the different color than you normally do, or go to lunch with somebody that you see being shunned, or whatever that is. I think many of us are depriving ourselves of our gifting, of our unique ability to serve, because we're preemptively stopping that judgment that may or may not even exist.
Yeah. I love that concept of the invisible audience, and I've not ever really heard it presented that way. I mean, when you first started talking about it, I was thinking it was like fear, right? And that, the old acronym, false evidence appearing real.
Right.
But even more so, it's almost like it's not just our fear. It's almost like one person's negativity,
yes,
multiplied times our own fear creates the invisible audience.
And so what happens is you've got the fear is because you've heard the one voice or the one person that raised their eyebrow or
validated your fear because one person said it.
And we used to outgrow it because we hung out with adults, but now we're online and people are so brave to be trolls and to be ugly and to speak up that this as an author, one negative book review out of 300 can sink you for days. Like it invalidates all your work. You question yourself.
Sorry, I don't know what that feels like. I have only 5-star reviews.
Well, actually. Bless your heart, because I've got a 1-star that's so invalid and so rude and ugly that now I have to laugh at it because everybody else is 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
But we obsess about the one, and then it becomes the old pest control commercial. If there's one that you see, there are thousands that you don't see. Well, the fact is that's the same way about positive people. The one that's outspoken, there are probably 5,000 that are not telling you how great you are or how valid you are or how, XYZ you are. But we tend to magnify the invisible audience of the critics because of the one person that was that had that toxicity, that did speak up. So as a result, before we hit publish or post or submit, we have that fear and we let them keep our good work from the world. And that's tragic. That's really, really tragic.
Yeah, just that you let that fear be the thing that holds you back from sharing your message, pursuing your dream, doing that thing. That is it's kind of wild. It's actually quite a selfish act, right? To say, God has given me this gift to share, but I am not going to share it because of my own fear about what 1% of the population might say. And so instead I keep it to myself.
Right. I don't remember the exact movie, but it was Bruce Willis. And he said, quick, somebody call the ambulance. When you phrase it that way. Somebody hurt my feelings, so I'm going to deprive other people of the gospel, or I'm going to deprive other people of this empowerment or these practical steps. What if somebody was afraid of being criticized because they had found the key to cancer? And so they didn't speak up because of the critics and because of Big Pharma and because of the backlash. And so as a result, we had people still dying. I mean, it's a selfish act. We have been gifted. It's the talent story. I told my best friend recently, I said, whew, I never figured you for a digger. He said, what? I said, you're a digger. You're digging and hiding that talent. That's a shame. Hate to hear that. That surprises me. And that's all I had to say because he's familiar with the story, right? We can either multiply the talents, we can at least invest them and get a small return on the investment, or we can dig and hide and bury them, which does not behoove the master.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carrie, this is so insightful, and I think there's some real deep-rooted psychology that we're talking about here that really affects people. I have one random off-the-wall question that I want to ask you.
Those are my favorite.
As we're wrapping up. But before we do that, where can people go to get a copy of the Barefoot Executive, read more about you, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so Amazon has my book. Audible is actually, the audio version is actually an award winner. So if you like to, Southern drawl, I do read it. So there you go. But you can find it at any major online bookseller. It's also available in Kindle. My site is carriewilkerson.com. I spell Carrie the way Stephen King spelled it way back in the day, the Bloody Prom Queen. And then I'm really active on my Facebook page, which is the Barefoot Executive. So if you go to Facebook and you search Barefoot Executive, I'm there too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here's my last question. This is my random question. What is something that you have changed your mind on recently? In other words, you had a definitive opinion about something, you were sure of it, and then something happened to you and you no longer feel the way that you used to feel about whatever that thing was.
That's a tough question. Because I probably would have said a couple of years ago that people don't really change their mind. But I do believe that the core of all personal development is just a matter of changing your mind. So this will sound very narcissistic and selfish, but it is what it is. And I think everybody listening can relate to that. I have just recently changed my mind and decided that I'm beautiful. How's that? And I know that sounds weird. People that really know my story know that I've lost a ton of weight. When I was in junior high, that choked me up. Okay, when I was in junior high, I remember a day, and I have a great family. I adore my family. I have all brothers. I asked my Mom, do you think I'm pretty? I was getting out of the car to go into school. Do you think I'm pretty? And she said, oh my goodness, I wouldn't give birth to a warthog. Now get out and go into class.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not what I needed to hear. I needed to know that I was attractive. I needed to know, every preteen girl needs to know that she's got some features that are beautiful, or at least that she can work with them. And so my whole life I've kind of functioned on the basis of, well, I'm not a warthog, so there's that, right? So, but just recently, after losing weight and then learning how to work with some tools like
you
style.
lost over 120 pounds.
140 now. Yeah. I now have lost more than I am.
Wow.
So and I just had a photo shoot last week, and I'm looking at those photos and I'm like, wow, they did so good. Look how pretty I look. And the feedback I'm getting is, no, Carrie, that really is you. That really is you. You are that person. It's not just that you're not a warthog, you are that person. But let me give you another example. My daughter Katie is 12 and she's a musical theater actress. She's pretty amazing and she wants to be on Broadway. And she's always told herself she was not an athlete. She was an artist. Not an athlete, she's an artist. Well, she just changed schools and she decided that being on the cheer team would put her in a leadership position, would help her be more visible to new people, and would get her involved in a deeper level. She didn't just want to be in the crowd and trying to break her way in. So she made a choice to be on the cheer team. She has changed her mind. It's been phenomenal to watch. Within the last 2 weeks, she has changed her mind that, yes, she is an athlete. She has started working out. She started eating differently. She started carrying herself differently. You know, her energy is different. It's been really phenomenal to watch someone change their core belief. And now she'll say she's an artist and an athlete. And so those are two examples. But I think we have to sometimes, this is an old improv actor trick, but you sometimes have to believe as if before it can ever happen. So the Bible says, as a man thinketh, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And that's the core of all what people call positive thinking. We have to believe it in order to fulfill it, because if we don't believe it, it can never be fulfilled. And even if it is fulfilled, we cannot embrace it and we sabotage it. Think of lottery winners and people that lose and regain weight, or that divorce and they go through that same pattern over and over with the same kind of relationships. We have to believe it first. Changing your mind about who you are or who you aren't, or what you can do or what you can't do, or what you do deserve or don't deserve. That's the core of all personal development that leads to any kind of greatness, in my opinion.
I love that. That is such a powerful thing to You recently decided that you were beautiful. What an important decision, and a true decision, Carrie. What a great thing. I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thanks. I'm 44. It was a long time coming, but the difference it's made to how my girls believe about themselves has been really eye-opening to me. I really am kind of grieving all those years of me being so critical of myself and selfish about what I was modeling. So, and it's also never too late. That's another thing everybody needs to know. It's never too late. You can change your mind about who you are and who you can be even now.
We love it. Well, we wish you the best, Carrie Wilkerson. Thank you so much for spending your time here and for being a bright light in the world. And we just want to see amazing things continue to happen for you and your family.
Thanks.
The feeling of overwhelm and keeping up with it all it's so much, and so much of it, what I've realized is that it's a mental game. And so I just have 5 really quick tips for you today about some ideas to help you manage this, and based on some of the things that Carrie was talking about, and I share them not as answers. I share them as things that I'm trying to do personally and trying to practice as I try to battle this feeling every single day. And as we have grown and become bigger and more profitable and had more like, I don't know, whatever you call it, like awareness or notoriety in the world, this has gotten harder and harder. This is not something that gets easier and easier. It gets harder and harder. But so here's just 5 things that, as I was listening back to the interview with Carrie, to maybe help you battle a little bit of the overwhelm. And number 1 is realize the invisible audience is there. I mean, that was huge. When she was talking about that, that just hit me. I was like, gosh, that's so good. Like, so often the stress and the pressure that we feel is coming from a figment of our own imagination. We point to certain people and we say, oh, that my boss or that customer or that, colleague or whatever, that those people are creating pressure on me. But it's like, are they really? I mean, a lot of times they might say some things, or they might ask you about something, or they might say, gosh, when's that going to be done? And that makes you feel like what you hear is you're not working hard enough, right? Or you're not working fast enough. And I struggle with that. And I'm like, God, I work like crazy. Like, and I'm a machine, like when I'm working. But you can't help but feel that way. So a lot of times, though, people are just asking, and it's ourselves that are the ones coming up with that pressure, right? It's our invisible audience that Carrie called, and I really like that name for it, because we're serving this invisible audience, and we give it all these characteristics. So realize the invisible audience is there. Number 2 is availability. This goes right to the procrastinating on purpose and the focus funnel methodology. Is she said, we make ourselves too available, and I think that is true. This is the permission to ignore. Anytime you say yes to one thing you are simultaneously saying no to an infinite number of others. So it's impossible to go through life never telling somebody no. You're always saying no to something. The question is, what are you saying no to? And it's very hard to tell people no over email or phone call or in person or when somebody asks you for something. But you if you don't say no to some things, you're gonna say no, like, to the things that really matter to you. And so you have to be able to say no in the context of realizing what it's going to cost you if you don't. The third thing, coming back to the invisible audience. So now you have this, you acknowledge that there's this group out there that has been, kind of this pressure comes from trying to serve these people. And what can be really helpful, I think, with that is to create an alternative positive story about what other people are thinking, right? So if you have the thought, and this is totally mental, but this is what success is, right? This is how you overcome any obstacle. Like anytime you have a challenge in your life, you're battling fear, false evidence appearing real. You're battling your creativity working in the wrong direction. That's what fear is, in my opinion, is your creativity working in the wrong direction. And so when it comes to the stress that we feel from time, that's very often what it is. It's our creativity working in the wrong direction. It is convincing ourselves we're not doing enough, or allowing us to think that somebody else is putting pressure on us or whatever. And what we want to do is create an alternative story, an alternative positive story to that. Just like we do with anything that scares us or with any challenge, is you start thinking about what would the positive look like. You start inventing another theory, because that's what your mind is working off of, this creativity, and it's either projecting the worst, or you can just as easily turn it to project the best. It's just a matter of intentionality. Carrie and I got into a discussion there a little bit, just sort of about how the brain works. And your brain does not delineate at all between positive and negative. Your brain just simply does whatever you tell it to do. So if you're letting your brain wander in the direction of how you're not living up to somebody's expectations, or why you're not good enough, or you're worried about what other people think, like in her case, like the moms at the playground, then that is allowing your brain to wander in that direction. It's creativity working in the wrong direction. So create a different positive story. I think that is, a whole nother strategy is to go, okay, well, that look that person just gave me, right? Instead of going, oh, that person's judging me right now, because you don't know, right? Whatever that look was, maybe they don't like your outfit, or maybe they weren't even looking at you. Maybe they were looking past you, or maybe they had a terrible morning, right? Or maybe they just looked at their kid who's bullying someone on the playground, and then they happened to look at you, and you got you were the receiver of some negative look that had nothing to do with you, because there is at least as likely a chance that is true. So you have to condition your mind to create these alternative positive stories, because otherwise your mind processes on them and you go insane. You go crazy worrying about what other people are thinking about you. The fourth thing, okay, so now the invisible audience is there. You're going to try to create an alternative positive story about what other people are thinking, because what other people think about us is very often this big force in our life. And it could just be a stranger at the playground, but it could also be your boss, right? It could be your business partner, your colleague, or your spouse, or your kids, or whatever. But don't forget, and this is one of the best pieces of advice or quotes, that I heard. It is a rich one, which is, you stop worrying what other people think about you when you realize how seldom they actually do. You stop worrying what other people think about you when you realize how seldom they actually do. This is the irony of the whole thing, right? Is that while we're sitting there being wondering, are they judging us? Are they mad at us? Are they frustrated with us? Like we're slowing them down? Are they unhappy, et cetera, et cetera? Meanwhile, in their brain, guess what they're thinking about? The exact same thing, except about themselves. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. People are too busy to think about you. They are too consumed with themselves. And the proof is that we're all consumed with ourselves, right? So like while you're sitting there, or I'm sitting there having these thoughts about what other people think about me, meanwhile, they're over there having the exact same conversation in their own brain. People are not thinking about you that much. They really aren't. And so when we realize that, right, you can just let that die. You can just let it go. It can just disappear. And you go, gosh, you know what? I'm not even going to worry about that because it's not real. It's made up. It's a figment of my own imagination. Half of the crap that we fear and struggle with is made up in our own mind. It's not there. And that is fear. False evidence appearing real, or creativity working in the wrong direction. And then the last little thing, I just wanted to talk, through this really quick is to just do your best. Because you know what? I had a day last week and I wrote about this on my blog. It was just, I was tired, and maybe you're tired, right? Like it's easy to feel defeated and to be overwhelmed by the incessant, like never-ending stream of emails. We feel beaten down. And sometimes I do this. Like I feel beat down by the list of tasks and projects that come in. They literally come in faster than I can keep up with them. And it's crazy because it's like I can never seem to be caught up. I can never seem to make a dent. And how is that? Like, how is it that I can work so hard and never be caught up? And even though I work and strive relentlessly and maximize every single second while I'm working, somehow I can still feel like this failure. How is that possible? And the thing that I realized is it's only possible in one moment. It's only possible when you lose perspective. It's only possible when you forget what you're doing, like when you lose sight of what success really is, because success is not a zero inbox. Success isn't being all caught up. Success isn't feeling like everything is under control. Success isn't responding to every single person's request. It's not. That's impossible. Success is doing the best you can do with what you have available to you, right? Like the definition of success is different for all of us. There is not a uniform definition. It's whatever matters to you. It's being the best at whatever you can do. And it's doing your best. It is being confident that you're giving all that you have. It's believing that you're laying it on the line in the pursuit of like worthy causes. You're trying to support other people around you. And that if you're doing your best, I mean, if you're really doing everything you know how to do, and if you're trying to balance a lot of competing interests, but you're doing your best to do that, then there's nothing to worry about. I mean, what more could people possibly ask for? But it's really not about people, right? It's really about you. You are the invisible audience. You're the one who has unrealistic expectations of yourself. And if you're doing your best, then you have to let yourself go of being the prisoner. You have to just say, you know what? I will do my best. I let God handle the rest. And I let go. I let God. I will work as fast as I can, but as slow as I have to. But I will not trade my happiness and my stress level for the impossible task of trying to keep up with all there is to do. I will simply do my best and know that is really the only thing I have to do. Well, that about wraps up the Action Catalyst podcast for this week. If you haven't yet, please log in to whatever your favorite medium is to listen to the show and both rate this podcast and leave a comment, as that helps new prospective listeners determine if the show's really a good fit for them.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and screenshot this episode to share with your friends on social media. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst, and subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening.